Thank you. Good evening, Ashna, and good evening to all those who have joined virtually on this program. I'm really deeply grateful to Mr. Rajan Padi, the director of the Delhi Management Association, for his kindness to invite me to say a few words at this very important occasion that is being celebrated today, which is to honor the unsung COVID heroes. I believe that the Delhi Management Association is very well suited to honoring people from different walks of life. As an institution, you are 65 years plus in terms of longevity. You have more than 3,200 members and have been providing human service to the cause of professionalism and the cause of management in Delhi. And really many of the who's who, as I was looking at the presidents of the Delhi Management Association, it is really the roster of the who's who of the country who have been at the helm of affairs of this prestigious institution. It is an honor for me, and Ashna was very kind to read a rather long sort of CV about me and whatever little achievements have been done. But today it is all about people who have done far more than that. For people who have gone beyond the call of duty, and men and women who have distinguished themselves through a single act that they have shown during this worst pandemic that we have faced. The pandemic that we are still going through, I think COVID-19 is not behind us as yet. We still have some way to go, but has really done three things to mankind, which I hope doesn't have a permanent mark or scar on us, but nevertheless is creating its own ripples today. One is the sheer uncertainty and volatility that the pandemic has thrown the world into. I believe that none of us, whether we are business people or whether we are professionals or whether we are from any walk of life, quite bargained for the kind of uncertainty, volatility, and the sheer shaking up that the pandemic has unleashed on all of us. It has in fact removed from our humans the sense of deep confidence and uncertainty that we had about the ways that we were following. So, a pandemic, in some sense, has hopefully made us humbler people, much more humble, to realize that there is a force, there is a being, there is circumstances that are far beyond the comprehension of normal human beings, and we have to face the consequences of unleashing some of these forces into the planet. And I think the death and destruction that this has caused will create ripples for a long time, and it will be many decades before we come back to the semblance of feeling as normal as we felt before March 2019. This is the occasion where you are honoring men and women who have gone beyond the call of duty. And really it is, I believe, that when self-preservation is paramount, as indeed it was paramount for all of us, only the angel is altruistic. There are very few people who really become altruistic, who really look beyond themselves to do acts that benefit communities, benefit their people, benefit the nation. And many of the people, almost all of them without exception, have in some manner or the other directly contributed to lend a helping hand and reached out during this very difficult circumstance of the first wave, and indeed, more crucially, the second wave that India went through, which was devastating and which created a lot of pain and suffering all around us. And I don't think I need to talk about it because all of us have witnessed it. A few characteristics these men and women have shown which makes each one of us extremely proud. Number one, they showed compassion. Compassion to go beyond your own family and kin, to reach out to fellow human beings is the greatest act that you can do as a human on the planet. And I think this is an act of compassion that they have shown, whether it was to provide oxygen, whether it was to provide medical facilities, whether it was to feed communities, whether it was to reach out to people in distress. A single act of compassion is what they have shown, and this is what is worthy of emulation. Courage. When many of us were huddled in our homes, fearing for our lives and worrying on whether we will avoid this virus by some act of God or by some act of our own behavior, here are men and women who went out into the open, into the world that was dominated by the virus, took their risks of life and limb, and achieved what they had to achieve. If this is not courage, I don't know what else is. We celebrate courage when people go out to war, which is truly courage of a very different kind. But to be courageous when all around you there is fear is a different kind of courage that also needs to be applauded and needs to be felicitated. Competence. These are all men and women who showed the competence and the capability to do the things that they had to do in order to reach out and in order to save someone or help someone or support someone. I think competence is intrinsic to both compassion and courage. Fourth, connection. These men and women had the necessary connection in society to be able to make a difference. Many of us intend to, want to, and they are desirous of making our impact. But very few have the necessary connection to be able to connect the dots, to be able to connect events, to be able to connect with resources on the ground, to be able to make things happen. This calls for a level of determination that is unique, and that is what each of these individuals who are being felicitated today have shown. And finally, continuity. These are not men and women who have stopped at one act. They continue their acts of compassion, their acts of reaching out, their acts of going beyond the call of duty to be able to help humanity in every way, whether big or small. So compassion, courage, competence, connection, and continuity have defined the purpose, have defined the being of the individuals who might be called unsung, but in every sense of the term, these are heroes who need to be glorified, who need to be recognized, who need to be felicitated so that all of us can be inspired. And what are the things that makes us inspired by the acts of each one of the people who would be felicitated today and would be honored today at this event? Firstly, these are selfless acts. I think in a world that is self-centered, in a world that is selfish, in a world where what I gain and what I lose is more important than what you gain and what you lose. A selfless act is the highest form of human behavior that we can be inspired by. It also gives us hope that respect, that decency, and humanity is alive. In a world that is torn apart by inequalities, by socio-religious pressures, by geographical distress, by climate change, by economic distress, and by various factors that in fact divide us rather than unite us, these men and women have shown that respect, that decency, that compassion, and humanity is what makes the human heart beat. And this is an important lesson that they have given us for the future. And I am therefore deeply honored to be present on an occasion where these men and women are honored. Finally, this is not the last of crises that we will see. This has been a pandemic that we say is once in a lifetime. But what lurks behind, we have no idea. I don't speak from a point of view of creating fear. But if this is one pandemic, what other crises of humanity are to follow? And when those crises follow, this And these are the people who would make a difference to our well-being on the planet. More of such people is what will make a difference to the well-being of communities, to the well-being of society, and to the well-being of our country. It is therefore my very proud privilege to congratulate each one of the winners of today's COVID Unsung Heroes Award. Each of you deserves to be felicitated, deserves to be honored, deserves to be respected, and deserves to be accoladed for the acts that you have done. This has been through an open nomination process. So more than 126 nominees have been brought in, evaluated by an extremely distinguished jury as well. The privilege of having some of the most storied men and women of society to be able to judge and to be able to give their stamp of approval and to give their stamp of excellence to the process. And finally, the award ceremony that you have today. Sadly, it has to be virtual because of the times, but I'm sure the joy and happiness that all of us feel at the felicitation of some of our fellow citizens is something that is unique and that will be transcended by the distance and by the airwaves that divide us. So my sincere gratitude once again to the Delhi Management Association for inviting me today to address this audience. I am deeply honored, as indeed I am also proud to be part of this occasion, to be honoring some of our citizens for their exemplary acts. I thank you very much for your kindness.